The key factor here is how to consult someone. There are times at work that you encounter difficulty or things you don't understand. You might be lost in thought or get worried. Time passes while thinking over the issue. Eventually you might not complete the work before deadline, or the problem might become bigger that you can no longer handle it alone. It is important to think on your own, but it is better to consult someone rather than thinking alone for hours or days. When consulting, do not try to have the problem solved by asking for the answer. It is important that you try to get some tips or clues. In this way, you will be able to work proactively without being passive. The first tip, therefore, is, do not think alone. Consult someone when things cannot be solved on your own. When consulting someone, make sure you can explain the situation clearly. Otherwise, it will make it hard for the consultant to understand. In addition, you may end up wasting each other's time by not being able to consult what you actually wanted to. Before consulting, sort out the facts and ideas, such as what your concerns and problems are, and what you think the cause for that is. It doesn't matter even if your idea is wrong. What is important is to think by yourself first. By doing so, it helps you to understand things that you are not sure with or worried about. Always take the actual product or materials with you when making a consultation. Actual products or materials help the consultant to understand the situation better, especially for issues that are hard to explain verbally. They also give unspoken message to the consultant that you are facing some problems. These tips may lead you to get more accurate advice. In sum, the second tip is to make clear of what you intend to consult in advance. It is not advisable to consult about the work details to your seniors or peers who are not directly in charge of the same work. It is because the person is not aware of the work itself and may not be able to provide adequate advice. It may even turn out to be a completely different output. When you want to consult about the work content itself, talk to the person who gave you the work instructions. The person who gave the work instructions has a clear vision of the objective and the expected output, therefore will be able to provide appropriate advice. Therefore, the third tip is, ask the person who gave the work instructions for any consultation on the work details itself. Tips in carrying out the soudan or consultation are: do not worry alone, clarify what you intend to consult, and to consult the person who gave you the job instructions. Now, let's look into the tips for performing the houkoku, or reporting. Reporting is something you do to your supervisor. The person who receives your report will make judgments or decisions based on the information that you have provided. What the supervisor wants are materials that enable to make judgments and decisions. In short, the supervisor desires to know the conclusion or results in the beginning. Then, all they need is some necessary information after that. When making a report, start from the conclusion. Then, explain the causes and background. This also applies for making written reports. By doing so, it helps cut wasteful time both for the person reporting and the person listening or reading the report. The first tip is, start reporting from the conclusion or result. Then explain the reasons and background. When something happens at work, it will be your supervisor who will take the final responsibility. It is also your supervisor who provides support, makes follow-ups, and gives feedback to your work. That is why you must always make sure that your supervisor knows the work progress. To this end, you must report the work progress at a good timing. Report the progress when you have completed the work that had been instructed, in the middle of a mid to long-term work, when changes have to be made in work, when you obtained new information, and when you have made mistakes. When one of these happens, report the situation to your boss even if you are not requested to do so. Among these timings, you must especially be careful when you have committed a mistake. You have made a mistake at work, for example. It is normal that you become reluctant to report about your own mistake or bad news. Let's say that after committing an error, you judged that it was not a big mistake, so you continued your work without reporting it. However, the situation gradually became worse and you decided to report about it when you could no longer handle the work. Following your report, your supervisor and seniors start to deal with the situation, but there are times that it is too late and nothing can be done with it. If you had reported about your mistake just after it had happened, your team could have coped with it while the problem was still small. There are many things that can be handled. The second tip is, get to know the appropriate timing of reporting. Bad news first. When is it that the person listening to the report cannot make a proper judgment? It is when concrete figures are not indicated, and the reporter uses vague words such as many or few, which definition depends on the reporter's judgment. When a report is mixed up with facts and the reporter's opinion, it is difficult for the listener to make a decision. Do not mix up the facts and your opinion when making a report. Make sure to include facts and figures in a report. Then express your opinion against the facts. In this way, it makes it easier for the listener to make judgments based on the facts. The third tip is, distinguish facts and opinions. There are 3 tips for reporting. Report from the conclusion, know the timing of reporting, and distinguish facts and opinions. Now, let's find out about some tips for renraku or contacting. Imagine that you were asked by your boss to inform something to others. Let's say that you have to contact several people, but since staff A and B are in the same division, you thought that contacting one of them would be enough and did not contact both of them. This, as a result, may stop the work or make some people feel bad since only limited people have access to the information. Do not omit to contact someone based on your own judgment. You must contact every single person who needs to be informed. On the other hand, make sure that you do not pass information to those who do not need to know for the sake of just in case, or because of prioritizing the convenience of sending information at once. The first tip therefore is to make sure to contact the appropriate people who need to know the information. There are various means of communication. Verbal, at meetings, telephone, email, by fax, or through documents. Ways of contacting differ depending on the person to contact, the content, emergency level, and importance. For simple or emergency contact, it is effective to inform verbally or by phone. For example, what happens if you send an email for emergency contact? No one knows if the person will read the email right after receiving it. The emergency state may get worse as time passes. Therefore, when you want a response or action against an emergency state, email is not a good way. For emergency contact, you must always use phone calls to directly contact the person from whom you expect action. Meanwhile, information that contains figures, policies, important or complicated facts, information which may cause misunderstanding by verbal communication, data that requires charts and figures, things that need to be recorded, those that need to be informed using a format, or under a certain system will have to be communicated in a written form. When you need to contact many people at once, make use of the morning assembly, meetings, bulletin board, corporate newsletter, or audio announcement. The second tip is to select and use the appropriate communication means that match to the situation.